Hey everyone, this is First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. It's time to do kind of an explainer on what's going to happen with two potential storms this weekend. We talked about this active pattern about a week ago. I think it was actually last Wednesday. We started talking about, hey, keep an eye on late next week and into the weekend. And here we are. We're a couple days out and we've got kind of a better grasp on what's going on, but we still have a lot of issues. And people always wonder, why can't we give you specifics right away? Well, I'll give you a good analogy. My son, he's 4 years old. He loves puzzles, and the puzzle pieces are about this big. They're gigantic, and there's only about 40 of them. That's an easy puzzle to put together, especially for a 4-year-old. The problem with winter weather especially, the puzzle pieces are about that big, and there's about 2,000 of them. So if you think about putting a puzzle together, when you have smaller parts and a lot more of them, it's a much more difficult forecast than when you have just giant big blocks and there's only 10 or 15 of them. That's forecasting sunny skies and 80. So if you ever want to be a meteorologist, try forecasting winter weather. There's just many more variables and there's just many more small variables to deal with. So that being said, not making excuses because I love doing this stuff, but it is incredibly difficult to nail this stuff down. Here's a look at the pattern right now across the United States. The first thing you notice, we're in kind of a mild day. Not as mild as the last couple days. We've got a little clipper system to the north. That is actually going to move through later today, and we're going to see the wind start coming out of the northwest and cooling us down. Here's our system back here. It's already starting to develop big-time snows in parts of Colorado. Really good setup here. I'm going to flip over to the water vapor loop, and you can actually see that little vortex, we call it, moving into the Four Corners region. That's a pretty potent little storm system. In fact, let me show the meso-analysis so you can see the vorticity there at 500 millibars. That's a pretty good little low, and this is going to kick out into the plains tonight and tomorrow, or southern plains in Texas, and then move down to the Gulf Coast. And that's where things start to get interesting. So let's turn off all the current conditions, and let's focus on the model data. You hear me oftentimes poo-poo the models, and this is the situation. I'm showing the models to kind of show you the setup. Don't take the models verbatim. I mean, they're guidance. It's just like tools in building a house. You could have all the tools and lumber laying around. That's not a house. It's just the tools. You got to put the thing together to make a forecast, and you got to put those things together to make a house. That's what we're going to do. So you can kill yourself flip-flopping back and forth every 6 hours with new model data. When I look at model data, I don't look for specifics. Ooh, it dropped 1 degree, or there's this much moisture. I'm looking for a trend. Is there 4, 5, 6 model runs in a row where it's getting wetter, colder, further east, slower, faster, all those type of things? And in this situation, things are getting faster. The trend has been for a faster model solution. So we're going to start with the GFS, though I will show the European. Please don't get caught up in GFS versus European. They're actually pretty close together, believe it or not. There's some small differences, but that's typical anytime you're looking at model data. So we'll look at the surface pressures and precipitation type, or what we call rain, snow, freezing rain line. So just a heads up here, blue is snow, red is going to be a wintry mix, typically ice or sleet, and then we're talking about green being rain. So we'll start today, we'll go into the evening hours, into tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. First thing you notice, there's a little bit of moisture here in the mountains, but that's really probably going to be freezing drizzle or fog. I don't think that's going to be a big deal, but it kind of shows you it's getting cold. Here's our system beginning to develop, but watch down here on the Gulf Coast. That's really the time frame in the area I'm going to watch here, and some of this data is going to load, so give it a second to kind of pop into the window here. You notice the moisture is increasing pretty quickly from the west tomorrow. A lot of this is going to be cloud cover and Virgo. We're not going to see it reach the ground. You see how it's really struggling to get up here. And that's always a difficult thing in this situation. How quickly does the precipitation rush in here, especially when you have a pretty cold and dry air mass sitting over the Carolinas. So we'll go out to basically what is going to be Friday morning at 7 a.m. So this is 7 a.m. on Friday morning. We've got some cold air trapped against the mountains. We got some moisture moving in. Our low is still way down here. And the first thing you notice, we got something going on here. Maybe a little snow rain mix, probably most likely sleet in this case. And as we go through the morning hours, there's a little rain, snow, sleet mix possible east of the mountains. Temperatures are likely going to be above freezing, so I don't see a major road issue. But then we go into the morning hours, everything seems to change over to rain, except where you see a couple specks there. Those are higher elevations above 3,000 feet. Looks like all rain Friday afternoon, but then we start to see things switch back to snow on Friday night, maybe some ice. We go towards Saturday morning, looks like rain, snow, and then we see the low kind of cranking up off the coast, and then we see the cold air funneling in on the back side. This is the first low Friday night into Saturday, and again, this is Saturday afternoon now. As we go towards 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there's still moisture on the backside as the low cranks up, and that's a pretty potent low. That's 992 millibars cranking up off the coast, and then we see the cold air funnel in. So you look at this and you say, it doesn't look like much. The thing you got to remember, the model is just trying to depict what's falling at the surface and doesn't take into a lot of the dynamics of what's going on in the atmosphere. There's likely going to be more rain, snow mixing in here because of the atmosphere, dynamic cooling we call it, and that's always something that's really difficult to forecast ahead of time. So I told you I show a little bit of the European model from the Weather Bell site just to kind of show you the ensembles here where the lows are. We'll go out and watch the low develop. There's actually some pretty good continuity here as we go into Saturday morning, that the low is going to be somewhere on the coast. Each little dot is one of the model runs kind of showing you the ensemble, and we look for the mean, and the mean is right on the outer bank. So you get a good idea there's something there. So when we look at the day 3 snowfall probabilities from the Hydrometeorological Prediction Center, HPC I call it, you can see 4-inch threat, about a 10% probability for the mountains, 40% up here in parts of Western Virginia and West Virginia, but I always like to look at the 1-inch probability. So we'll start Friday and watch as we go into Friday night. We start to see, this is 7 p.m. Friday night, most of the probabilities for 1 inch of snow are confined to the mountains, but there's a little bit across the foothills and Piedmonts, not much, 5–10%. We go into the overnight hours, and by Saturday morning, 24 hours, so this would be from 7 a.m. Friday to 7 a.m. on Saturday, there's certainly the possibility we're going to see some wet snowflakes mixing in. I always like to look at these Schreff plumes, and just to let you know what this is for Charlotte, the probability of snow from the 21 members of the Schreff ensemble. A lot of fancy words. Basically, what are the chances? Well, the mean for Charlotte is 0, but there's a couple of the members that have trace amounts, barely anything to write home about. Let's go up to Hickory, okay? The mean for Hickory, 0.2 of an inch of snow certainly would be measurable, could fall from the sky, but a couple of the ensembles are up around 2 inches. So you see there's a possibility that you could get 2 inches, but remember, for every possibility of 2 inches, there's some down here at 0. So that's why we look at the mean, kind of the average. Now let's look at Boone. Boone's average is about 2 inches, just roughly under 1.5 inches. But there's a couple of these up around 7 inches. Even I saw some yesterday around 8 inches. So the probability that we could see some big snow in the mountains is there because there is a lot of moisture with this system. The big story is the temperature. So we'll quickly look at the soundings, and I'm going to look at Charlotte just briefly to kind of show you what's going on. If you don't know what this is, don't worry. What I'm showing you is what the atmospheric profile is, the temperature from the ground up to the jet stream level. So as I go from Friday morning into, late Thursday night into Friday morning, the thing you notice is we have the possibility of some wintry weather Friday morning. It shows up as rain, but if you look over here, our ensembles are showing this could be a wintry mix because here's the freezing line, and the profile is almost below freezing, down to about 5,000 feet. It dips up a little bit, then it's just above the freezing mark. So to me, this would probably be some sleet. You're probably going to get melting snowflakes that could refreeze on the way down, or possibly stay as a wet snowflake on the way down through the morning hours, but then as we get towards lunchtime, things warm up enough that it looks like all rain. So that's just a brief kind of synopsis of what's going to happen. This is just the first part of what's going to be an active pattern this weekend. I'm going to have complete updates starting today at 4, 5, and 6 on NBC Charlotte. Either way, it's going to be a close call. This is one of those things that drives you nuts. Remember the puzzle pieces. Small little pieces here. This low shifts a little to the east. We get a little bit more cold air in. And the big thing that always throws you off is dynamic cooling. Do we get a band of really heavy precipitation? And what I mean by dynamic cooling, it literally rains or snows so heavily that cold air gets pulled down from the upper levels of the atmosphere down, and we cool the air from the top down as opposed to it being cold enough at the ground. And this happens quite a bit around here where it's 40 degrees and all of a sudden we get a heavy burst of precipitation and it starts to snow. They're big fat wet flakes and it's like 35 degrees. You can get snow, and that's something I should always mention it doesn't have to be freezing at the surface to get snow. It only has to be cold enough above our heads to get snow. The only winter precipitation that requires freezing temperatures is actually freezing rain. It has to be at freezing and raining to call it freezing rain. You can get snow and sleet. I've seen it at 40, 44 degrees sometimes because it's 44 down here, but you go 1,000 feet above your head, it's well below freezing and it's falling as sleet or ice or snow, and it doesn't have time to melt on the way down. So if you have a thin layer of warm air at the surface, you can still overcome it. It's like taking ice out of your fridge on a hot day and throwing it in the yard. It's 90 degrees outside, it's still ice because it was cold in the refrigerator or the freezer. So just remember, that's the way the atmosphere works. Think about what's going on above our head, which is just another one of those puzzle pieces that makes this difficult. So hope that kind of explained a little bit for all the winter weather lovers, the people that are planning. Again, the timing, Friday during the day, it's going to start mid-morning. It's going to last through Friday night and start to move out early Saturday into the afternoon. So things are moving up about 12 hours quicker than we thought yesterday. And if things continue like this, it might even move quicker. But I'm really pinpointing that Friday time frame right now. So that's kind of long-winded, 11 minutes of talking about the weather. Hope you enjoyed it. And as always, follow me on Facebook and Twitter. I'll post updates there. And of course, we'll have complete updates starting today at 4 o'clock on NBC Charlotte. See you then.